I think the other people are, I know, are coming and go you were too, it's the way. But then you're like,
Yeah. Still to be his profit, but try to not let as much noise we do.
This thing, I think, is for that.
Is this the new coach?
Yeah, it's coming in.
By 9:15.
We're early. Was your schedule 9:15?
Mine says 9.
You said 9, okay, maybe I missed that.
I thought they were on the hour, right? 9, 10, 11, and we're done by 12. No, I'm not in charge. In charge, really? So let's try this again. So my name is Laura Roth. I'm Executive Director of First in Missouri. We've been providing robotics programs here in St. Louis for over 20 years, but we were doing it as an all-volunteer basis. So we didn't have a real structure. We were using fiscal agents. We were doing all sorts of stuff. So COVID, all those kind of changes in requirements from First, and we incorporated. So we are incorporated. We are a 501c3 approved charity. We'll take donations from anybody pretty much. If you've got matching grant, matching gifts at your company, this is the way to maximize all those kind of things. We provide the competitive environment for the entire spectrum of FIRST robotics. So for the big robots, the FIRST robotics competition robots, 120 pounds taller than me robots that are being driven out there by our hosts from Westminster. So make sure you stop by and tell them thank you for hosting us. Those robots, we run the St. Louis Regional. So that's in March at Chaffetz Arena. And so everybody's welcome. Always FIRST events are free and open to the public. So if you're enjoying this, bring the kids to see the big ones. They're a lot of fun. We provide the FIRST Tech Challenge robots. So if you came in early, you might not have seen them, but they're driving out in the front lobby. That's our other high school program. It's a little bit smaller scale, a little bit lower cost, a little more able to have more kids touch robots kind of thing. So it all depends on what scale your school is looking for. We run that program for Missouri and Kansas because there's not a partner in Kansas right now. And then for FIRST Lego League and the 3 programs under the FIRST Lego League umbrella, we run it for the state of Missouri, except Kansas City. That's my new way of explaining who we are, except Kansas City. So there's going to be competitions. I don't know if you saw the schedule, you weren't really looking, but we've got a competition down in Stratford. We've got one in Columbia. We cover the rest of the state. We're really looking forward to building more and more opportunities. We're great in the metros, but there's this whole hourglass of the rest of the state. So if you have friends or family in other parts of the state, they can still come to our website and we'll help them get started as well. And we'll, find the closest team and do all those kind of things. So any questions you have about FIRST or the other programs, happy to help you with. If you ever need anybody to come talk to principals about supporting you or your school board or any of those kind of things, I'm your girl. If you know anybody that's interested in judging or sponsoring or any of those kind of things, I'm your girl. I've been doing this since 2005. There is no exit strategy, not to scare you away, but once you've drunk the Kool-Aid, we just love to keep you here. We're a fun group of people. We see the same folks for years and years and work with them. And so we have a lot of fun together, and welcome to our global robotics community. I want to thank our presenters today. So Beth and Art are going to talk to you about being new coaches. They are very, very successful coaches. Everybody has their own terms of success. They've been doing it for a while. They know what they're doing. Got good kids. They've got good support from their school, and they also work on bigger programs too. So they are happy to share their experiences with you today, and we're very happy they were here. Thank you so much. I'm going to go, and I will see you during the rest of the day.
So it's kind of a fun fact. This is my dad, so we're a father-daughter team that, we've been coaching together for 8 years. And we, have had a robotics team at, my child's grade school, for those 8 years. And, we have been really successful. We've had a great time, but, it's, it's a lot of work and energy, but it's probably one of the most rewarding things that, I've been a part of. And getting to do it like with my dad and, or with a really good friend. I mean, that's what makes it, really exciting. And then to see the kids grow and succeed is really impressive. And if you do this year after year, our team has always just been middle school kids because we can only have 10 on a team. And so we've limited it to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. To see a 6th grader
You want to come?
start to compete and then by 8th grade, see their skills and how they've developed is unbelievable. The things that they can do in 8th grade that in 6th grade they were struggling with, just from building upon experience is amazing. It's amazing. So, and that's what this program can do for, the kids that you're working with. So we're gonna jump on in and just do a little slideshow. There's 4 main areas. There's the robot, building the robot, designing the robot, programming the robot. Then there's the project, which is the challenge to take a real world problem and try and find either a brand new solution or improving upon an existing solution. There's core values, which is all about how we treat each other, how we treat other teams, how we behave, how we learn and grow. And then there is the robot game, which is always the super fun part, which is the playing the game, and competing in those 2.5 minutes, which is, very different from building it and programming it and all that. The strategy of the robot game is sort of a whole new thing. So, some basics, sorry. You guys probably know this, but you can have 2 to 10 members on your team. The grades are 4 through 8 in the United States. Outside the United States, it's a little different. You need to have 2 coaches on your first login, and you have to do everything. Like you can't say, I'm gonna do the robot, but I'm not really gonna do the project. Everyone has to do all of the parts. Every year there's a new theme, a new challenge, a new game season. So every year you're starting fresh. It's scratch. It's a whole new thing. You get a new mat. You get new challenges. You build a new robot. Obviously using all of your materials that you have before. And anyone can do this. Any child can be part of FLL without any knowledge or experience, and any coach or mentor can be part of FLL without any experience. You don't need to be a programmer. You don't need to be an engineer. You don't need to be have robotics experience. You're using block programming that really anyone can do it. And YouTube is always there. The internet is always there. There's so many resources and there's other teams that can help you. So not knowing anything about this is totally okay. And you can succeed without any previous knowledge. Okay, so, the season. So obviously you probably have all already ordered your kit. So in August or so, when it comes out, you order your kit, you receive it. So from August until the qualifier, which is a date you're going to sign up for, you're working on all of the areas. So that's kind of your timeline. You register for a qualifier. You want to register as soon as that comes out. He normally does our registering, so I'm not super familiar with the process, but you want to sign up right away to figure out, because qualifiers run over several weekends. So are you going to pick an earlier time? Are you going to pick a later time? There's location things. Do you want to do that? Your qualifiers you're going to compete in are going to be late October, November, early December. Some teams, about 10% of the teams will move on to state, which is typically held in January in Missouri. It used to be in December, but now it's in January. And a few teams, like one or two will advance on from there to either go to Worlds or to go the Razorback Invitational. And those are in April and May. So that's kind of how it goes. So most teams are gonna wrap up before Christmas, but some teams are gonna advance on to state. And it's, the qualifiers are amazing, super fun, great experience. It's a great day. So that's kind of how this season goes. Okay, we'll get on to the cool part, the robot.
Okay, the robot part that is defined there, it basically talks about designing a robot, you know, to be, you know, to work with the game. You have to look at the game field and the missions on it and build a robot that can do those things. Now, and then at the qualifier, you'll be judged against this rubric. And there's dozens of questions in here. But the thing is, you have to identify, you know, your goals, design the robot to do that. You know, perhaps create the right attachments to make the robot do special things. Picking up energy cells and hanging them. Probably a pretty good trick. You look at the field, a lot of things can be pushed around. Part of the, you know, mission can be pushed in to do something. Some of them you actually have to hook onto them and pull back to get stuff to dump out. So you can create something that's going to be useful to you. And then it's a matter of trying to do it and getting better. You know, what you tried first probably isn't going to work, but you'll see where you can make it better. So one of the secrets is be able to communicate what you've done. When you go to the qualifier, the judges want to know some of that story, how you decided to design, how you did it, what happened, did it work, you know, things like that. How did you improve it? All sorts of different things like that. So they're going to want to hear a little bit about the story of the robot. You have a 5-minute presentation that you can give them talking about your robot and how you got it. So go to the next one. When you're looking at the robot, one of the things is if you look at some YouTubes of some really successful robots that have done well, in last year's game, for instance, you will see there's some elaborate robots. First has changed the game, so they basically pin you into a rather small area. You have to make everything fit in the home base to try and encourage you to keep it small and keep it simpler. But, you know, teams will find a way, you know, to get it rather elaborate. Problem with elaborate is if it falls on the floor, it's likely going to partially come apart. That's often happens. You know, and this is just attachments that, you know, pulling onto your robot and you make it do something fancy. Yeah, some of the guys do some really elaborate things that the robot can drive and can drive over something. You know, be careful. The really simple things, your robot can just push things to the right place, put things into a circle, deliver the energy cells or the rechargeable battery to the right place. A lot of that can be done just by pushing. The kids are good at, oh, I can grab this and move it over here. And like, yeah, now how do you make a robot do like your hand? That's a very complicated robotics task. You know, if you can find a way to hook it, trap it, and drag it and place it someplace, that's all you need to do. Or if you can bring it to base, load it onto the robot, and then take it out and dump it into the right space. Lots of different things to do. You'll be amazed if you watch some of those videos, you will see some very simple robots go out there and do all kinds of things. And that's where you probably want to guide the team members to work. The thing is, when we did our team, everybody would pick a mission. Now, we typically had 10 on our teams. Everybody pick a mission and go work on it for a few meetings. And over time, the ones that were really successful helped some of the other ones. But once we got to, we had a fair cluster of missions that worked, you started to talk about combining missions into one run, because if you start in one corner of the field and have to go all the way to that corner and then come back for the next one, that takes like 30 seconds. And you're not going to be able to do very much that way. So you have to, as you go out there, knock off 2 or 3 things along the way if you can. But that's a later stage in your development. That's part of where your iterating comes in. And that's what they're going to want to hear about with the judges. The attachments that you have, try and keep them simple. If you can make easy on off ones, that's the best. There's things that just plug on and off. If you have to plug the axles into the cross hole things, they'll sit there and fight with that. And they can't really, they struggle to see this and line the crosses up and plug it in. And when they pull stuff apart, the arms fly out like this, and you're lucky if you don't wreck something on the table until you get them to slow down and do it carefully. So easy on off stuff, they just sort of plugs on and the gears engage. It would be the best way to do something on a spike prime. When we talk about robot design, I was going to suggest look at on YouTube, look for Mr. Hino, and he has some spike prime stuff. I also saw that he's basically stopped making videos now because he's moving from California to Tennessee. But the thing is, in last year's game, he basically did practically every mission as a standalone, but a real simple little robot to do it. So you get some ideas from him how to do various tasks. One of the things you need to do is probably follow the line, use a light sensor or something to follow a line. Know when you got someplace, stop at the line, things like that. The gyro is another thing that makes the robot go nicely. The EV3 has an external gyro. The Spike Prime has an internal one. So it's there. It's a resource to help it go on the right course, to go straight. The robot you'll perfect your routine to get it there, and then suddenly it'll start going to the side every time. We found using masking tape to clean our wheels. And we used one of the blue painter tapes. And that was a good way to clean the wheels and get the dust off of them. It took some of the performance out. But the EV3 has a nasty habit of jerking a little bit as it starts. And, it's one of the hazards. If you tell it to go too fast, it jerks more. And it'll start off on one course on you. And it'll do it about 3 times in a row consistently, and then it'll change. So you kind of have to help your robot know where it's going. There's things can help guide the robot to engage a mission in some cases. If you keep watching some of those videos, you'll get some good ideas. The strategy part is something they ask for and it's a little strange, you just want to go and score lots of points, right? I would say work with the kids and the team members to, what's your goal? You want to do the easy missions first, or do you want to go score the hard one first and then do these? Have something, what's their best idea of how they want to do it, and then see how it works. It's another one of those things you can test and iterate and see how it works. And, if you're gonna, have trouble, it would be best to have scored some of the higher point things first if you can, things like that. But I guess this would be, have the kids work up what they consider a strategy, in their own words, because they can probably come up with something, and then they can explain that to the judges. Because that is one of the things they're looking for is the strategy. What did you set out to do? There's 15 missions on the field. You probably can't do all of them in competition. We tried to get so that with a team of 10, we kind of had somebody work on each and every one of those. Now, last year with the wind turbine blade, we never did tackle that mission. It's the only one we really didn't try. But people worked on each one.
Awesome. Okay, on to the innovation project, which is kind of the wow part. Here again is the rubric. This is the innovation project rubric. The best thing that, we can say for, kind of doing events is to follow the rubric. I mean, this is, you need to look at this. The kids need to look at this. They need to understand this is what we're trying to do here. So the innovation project, you're focusing on identifying, a problem. You need to be able to, explain why is it a problem. So the kids really need to learn about, why do we need to find a solution to this? How big of an impact would we have if we could find a solution to that? You need to come up with something that, the design is unique, it's different, it's, innovative. The iteration is really important because they want to know what was your first idea? And then what happened? Because, it's going to change as you meet with new experts, as you learn more, as you do things. And you have to be able to explain, how all of this is, how this is going to make a difference, why it's innovative, why it's important, and things like what is it going to cost and all of that. The things that I would say is, like, one of my quotes that we had written in our robotics room was, everything is a thing. So your kids are going to come up with some great ideas, and then you're going to Google it and you're like, yeah, somebody's already doing that. Yeah, somebody's already doing that. Oh, yeah, that's the thing. So, but that's the great part, because they're thinking and they're coming up with all these ideas. You can be like, yeah, it was such a good idea. Someone's already done it, And so you just have to keep exploring. And it is really hard to find your project because, one, you have to find a problem and the kids have to be interested in it because they're going to spend weeks thinking about this, researching it, talking to experts, focusing on this. So it has to be something that someone's really interested in. So my best advice is speak to as many experts as you can. When you don't have a project, ask experts to say, this is our challenge, so you reach out to people, in the different areas of energy that you're interested in, and you just say, can we just ask you questions? Can you tell us what you do, what problems you see in your area, and just have the kids ask them questions. And that's a big training thing, is like working with the kids to learn, how do you ask grown-ups questions? How do you actually behave when you have a guest come in to speak to you? So they're learning all of these skills, learning about paying attention, learning about taking notes. Like our kids always had to take notes when we had experts come in. And then they had to write up their notes, into a document, Google Drive, and, so it was all there. So bringing in people and asking questions until something catches with a kid, where they're like, I think, and then, it kind of just builds organically from there. And like, we would email all the parents of the kids on the team and be like, do you know anyone who knows anyone in these fields? And just send them a list. And you'd be surprised, oh, well, my uncle, da-da-da, or so-and-so, or I know this. That's how you find people. And if you just reach out, like if you email, like we met with the mayor in St. Charles one year because they had a huge flooding problem and our thing had to do with flooding. So we just emailed the mayor and he's like, sure. And we went and visited the mayor in St. Charles. People are really receptive when you say, I've got this group of kids that's trying to do this thing. They're really receptive. So meet with people, have the kids, the younger your kids are, the harder it's going to be, but baby steps. Have them try writing and thinking about things as early as possible. Work through the rubric. It's really going to guide you on the process of what we're doing, of finding the project, identifying existing solutions, knowing how this is different, what will the impact be, what's this going to cost, how could we implement it, maybe building a prototype, maybe you built a first prototype and then you built a second prototype. Those are all great things, for the kids to learn that process, because no one invents something as a finished product on their first attempt. You're gonna have to do a skit, and that's super fun. The judges love fun skits. You have 5 minutes for the skit, including your setup time. But it can be anything you want. There've been teams, there's this one team that we met at Razorback. Every skit they've ever done, they sang. They sang the whole thing. Everything was sung. Our teams were never able to do that sort of thing. But, it's usually something engaging, entertaining, creative. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. It is the kids. So the kids have to memorize, they have to learn their lines. So we would practice our skit over and over. So they learned, a lot about grit and staying focused. And because we were often like, I've heard this 407 times. I don't want to hear this presentation again. But, you got to keep doing it. And so, the kids the kids writing the skit is their absolute favorite part of this season, I think. They just love this idea of, it's like a mini play, and the costumes, we do costumes, you do the whole thing. It's very exciting. You should practice the judges' questions. Some of your kids, it's gonna be the first time they've ever been in front of a panel of adults asking them questions. And these are gonna be adults that they don't know. So you would need to, if you don't practice they're gonna kind of be caught off guard perhaps. So you can Google FLL judging questions. There's a lot of resources out there, but it's basically questions that follow the rubric. So, we just ask, how did you come up with this idea? Like, how did you decide on the presentation style for your skit? Who did you talk to? Who were your experts? Who is your favorite expert? What's the best thing you've learned this season? Why do you think your solution is better than the existing solutions? There's a lot of questions out there, but just practice that with them beforehand. So when they go in, they have confidence to be able to speak about their project. And then present in front of as many groups as possible. We're associated with the Catholic grade school. We'd go to the Home and School Association, we go to the Men's Club, we go to the Knights of Columbus, we go to the Ladies Club, we would go to the school, we would present to anyone who would listen to us, because it's practice, and then the kids get exposed to all different ideas. And like the questions people would ask, we made changes. The kids would go back and be like, we never thought about that. So we probably need to change something about this. So like it changed their solution because they realized, I don't know that was a great point no one ever brought up. So, the kids can grow by having people ask them things they never thought about their topic. So, and then it's also a way to spread first. because a lot of people don't know what FIRST is. So it's a great way for you to get out there and spread the word about FIRST and let people hear it. So core values, I'm gonna call it the heart of FLL. Again, you have a rubric. The core values are discovery, innovation, impact, inclusion, teamwork, and fun. And, these are really important. You're gonna learn about gracious professionalism and cooperation. Those are first terms. And it's really, while we're doing all of this, the goal is for us to help these kids really become good members of society. People who are interested in what's happening in our world, people who want to create new things, make an impact. We want to include everyone. I mean, when you have a team, everyone needs to have their say. You can't be like, well, we're going to do it this way and your idea isn't going to work. Like that's not allowed at FIRST. Like everyone's idea is important and everyone gets an equal share in helping make that decision. And teamwork, really focusing on, like, we are a team. So even though, 2 kids are running the table all this, well, we always switch our kids out. Like on our team this year, everyone but 1 kid ran the table. You know what I mean? Like we switch kids out. But if you only had 2 kids running the table, they didn't run the robot game. I mean, everyone did. Your whole team did. However it ended up, that was a team effort, a team result. And then, of course, fun, is we want them to have fun while we're doing this. So I would really encourage you to have the kids learn the core values. I do a great core value exercise where you write out the definitions for all of the core values and you cut it up so every word is a separate piece of paper. Put it all in a bag and you give it to them. And then they have 5 minutes as a team to put it all in order. And so that's how they learn. That's one of the ways that we have them learn what each of those 6 core values means. Because, core values doesn't work unless they know what they are, So and we'll do that multiple times in a season. And I actually have 2 bags and I'll divide the kids up and I'll be like, okay, and I'll put older kids with younger kids, on each team. And then it's hard when you've got all these little pieces of paper, but so that's a good way. Talk about core values at every meeting. When kids are behaving in a way that's not core values, we're always like, hey guys, core values, like come back to, being nice to everyone and we're not going to argue. And then do core value activities. Our kids loved doing core value activities. They'd be like, can we do a core value activity? There's tons of them online. You can look them up. There's a lot of great ideas. And they're just like small 5-minute activities that the kids do. And then afterwards you talk about it, like what went well? What didn't go so well? How could we have done it differently? Like, what did you think? How did you feel while you were doing that? Just kind of talking. So after every core value, we kind of talk through it and talk about, how they worked together or didn't, depending on the activity. Teach your kids about gracious professionalism and cooperation. They are great concepts. It is, we are all here, all trying to do the same thing. And yes, there's winning and advancing. But while we're doing that, we want every other team to do their absolute best. And we want to help you. Helping everyone do better is more important than winning. So teaching them that if we all can be our best, our world's going to be a much better place. And competition, we're competing, but we're going to compete, in a way where we hope everyone, does really well. I would introduce them to Woody Flowers and Dean Kamen. Woody Flowers is just like an incredible person. He helped Dean Kamen found FIRST, and he's no longer with us. We were lucky enough to meet him once, and it was, an amazing experience. But there's a lot of videos out there where he talks about the core values, and it's just inspirational. So I would really advise you to watch some of those videos. And just remember that this is why we're really here. I know we're making robots and we're doing a lot of fun, cool stuff, but all wrapped around this other sort of sets of things. So the robot came, which is the really fun part.
The, for the game, there's the rules and you can get them in the book form or you can find them online. And the kids should work through that, and understand the missions. They're real quick to look at the table and try and figure out what the mission is. You really need to read the rules. Because there's little subtle things, and I can't tell you very much about this year's. Fred, the head ref, was explaining something this morning that I only partially grasped. The dragon, I don't know if you're supposed to move it from one end of the field to the other, but you have to bring it into base and put an energy cell in it, and then maybe move it to the other base or something like that. Finding all those, you can't figure all that out just by looking at the table. You have to read the rule book. And teach them to go back to it often. One of the other things that I didn't have on here is the score sheet will be printed out. It'll be available in PDF form and on the resources page on the website. And the kids can look at that. They can use that to score themselves when they start running matches. But there's subtle little things, like something can only be touching the mat, or it can only be touching something else. Different, there's different little subtle things that get to be about something. When something's supposed to be in a circle, first we'll tell you if you read the rules, does it have to be completely in the circle, or does it have to be at least partially in the circle? And if you read the rules, you'll be able to figure this all out. One of the other things about it is if the rules don't say that you have to get this out by manipulating this orange lever on the mission model, then you can just reach in and take it. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be easy to do, but sometimes over the years, we've seen things where the way the mission was designed and built, there was a very obvious way most people were going to do the mission and what appeared to be what they expected you to do. But kids can think outside the box. First encourages that. There's another way to accomplish the end, and the rules don't say something specific. You can do that. That's where the creative part comes in. Because it's pretty amazing what teams will come up with to score even higher. So, I mean, that's the key thing on that is to keep looking, but keep going back to the rules and figure out what it is. Start figuring out how your score comes up. You start the match effectively with the precision points. And years ago, we had, those were penalty points and they were negatives. Well, they switched that around so that now you start out with the 50 points from the precision points. And only when those things are taken away, you start going down towards zero. There's lots of missions where you just have to deliver something, out on the field that score points. Figure those out and get something that they can be successful with quickly, and then build on that. You can nudge them and guide them in some of these directions, kind of help them. Are you going to have EV3s or are you going to have spike? How many have the spike? And how many are still doing EV3? Okay. Um, I'm not familiar with this bike, but in looking at what I've seen about it and watching it, I think those robots have a little bit of an edge in terms of they seem to move much more smoothly. You can control the accelerator, they don't just jerk full power and they ramp the power up so that they go straight. EV3s have a bad habit of jerking sometimes, but find ways to work around those issues. So. And you need to build your pieces, build carefully, kind of double check them. We put a piece down on the field backwards one year, and it wasn't until we got to a competition that we figured out we'd done it down wrong. As you get close to a qualifier, you're gonna have to build your 2.5-minute run in the exact sequence and practice it. That's what it's gonna take to be successful. Is you can do all these things, but if it doesn't fit the 2.5 minutes, it's not gonna go well in the robot game. You will get a practice run. The refs will show you what you don't understand. If there's something that the kids don't understand, the refs will straighten them out in that first run. And then they basically will come back and for 3 runs that count. And there's time in between in a regular match setup. When you do it online, you don't get those, when you do a remote type of match, you don't usually get the time in between. But when you do the regular one, typically you'll have time in between your matches to try and fix what's wrong or what isn't working a little bit. But there'll be that kind of thing to deal with. And at a given qualifier, there'll be a pair of tables set up together. There might be 2 pair of tables. You may be on either side of the table for your matches. Depending upon how things are set up, some places you would actually compete on all of the tables by the time you were done. But you won't always be on the exact same table. The kids need to look out there and be sure that, help the refs be sure the table is set right. That all the mission pieces that are critical to you are properly preset for the match. That's one of the important things that kids can do. Just tell a referee that, can you reset that? Because when refs are out there and I've done the reffing, you get really busy and you can forget to put this up like it's supposed to be sometimes. And then it's embarrassing. One of the things to understand is the robot does what you told it to do, not what you thought you told it to do. You can think you told it to do this, but it does exactly what you told it to do in your code.
All right, this is a picture of one of our qualifiers. This was many, many moons ago. So this is at MICDS. This is kind of a good picture of a qualifier. You each get one long table and you can set it up however you want. And like the kids are in the background, doing whatever. So what to expect at a qualifier? Typically, there's going to be 20 to 30 teams at your qualifier. It just kind of depends on which qualifier you go to. You're going to be given a table, and typically you get a couple of chairs. Although I don't believe I've ever sat in a chair at a qualifier. The robot game, you have one practice run, and then you have your 3 real runs. And like you said, the kids can ask questions to the referee, and if the kids are doing something that the ref will let them know, like, oh, well, that you can't do that. And then they'll have time to maybe adjust. The judging session, it's changed over time, but this year's the same as last year. They will actually go into one room and they will do their innovation project, their robot design and their core value judging all in one session. There are typically 2 to 3 judges in the room. And sometimes it depends on your location. Sometimes just 2 coaches are allowed in. Doesn't actually have to be the coaches, but 2 people. Sometimes all the parents can come in, but sometimes they can't. You are allowed typically to videotape it and record it so that the parents can see it. But just so you know, going in, they may or may not be able, the parents may or may not be able to get into the room, which is heartbreaking to the parents, but it's really based on size of the location in the room and stuff. It takes the whole day. I mean, you start early at like 8 and you're usually done by 3 or 4. We typically, we have a tradition of after a qualifier, the whole team, goes out to eat and, kind of celebrate that, we, made it to the qualifier and, did our best and, so, but, you kind of, that was just the culture of our team. But it is a full day, and like I said, I don't think I ever sat usually, and it's busy, and but it's super, super, super fun. It's really fun. The kids are excited. I just had a thought and it left me. But anyway, one of the big things is remember the kids do the work. It's really hard as they're struggling, and you're like, wow, that'd be so much easier if I did that. But that's not how it works. So the kids do the work, and it's the kids' ideas, and sometimes the kids have chosen things where we're like, oh, okay, and that's what you do because it's their project, it's their ideas, it's their robot, it's their everything. So you got to let them do the work. They're going to be the ones talking about it. They're going to be the ones representing it. They're going to be the ones that have to explain things. So if they don't do the work, they're not going to be able to do any of those things. So that's really important. You are there to guide them and help them and do things like, your 5th grader can't email the mayor in St. Charles, but you can, you're there to help them with those things and guide them, but they're really there to do the work. This was one of our teams several years ago. I mean, now this girl's a senior and on our high school robotics team. I mean, time's flown. But anyway, so good luck. We're open to any questions. I know we have about 10 minutes, I think, for questions.
Where did the skit fit in on that? You showed did they do the skit in that room with the
Yes,
judges?
yes. So
Okay.
that's the innovation project.
Oh,
So,
that's what the skit
yeah,
is.
that's what the skit is. So when you go in for judging, you are going to, the first thing you'll do is your innovation project. So you'll say hello to the judges. The kids will set up all their stuff and then they'll start and they have 5 minutes. I mean, it's pretty firm. And so the kids will just do their skits and then they will ask about 5 minutes of questions pertaining to the innovation project. Then you'll move on to robot, right away, you're going to move on to robot. And so then they will do, you can go into the robot unprepared and just talk, or you can have something prepared. We've always had something prepared where we actually do a big board every year. The kids kind of have this thing they like to do. And so it's just kind of carried over every year, that concept. But so they do, we have a project board, which everyone does a project board that you can put pictures of what you're doing, information about the project. So you'll have your project board that you'll present in your skit or after your skit. And so you can do that for the robot or not do that for the robot. We typically, the kids have always memorized something that they wanted to about the robot. There's a RDES, the Robot Design Executive Summary. You can find that out on the internet, and it kind of just talks about all of the things that, how did you design it? What's your strategy? All of this stuff. You can kind of go through that. So then they're going to talk about the robot. Then they'll have 5 minutes to answer questions about the robot. And then in kind of all of the overarching questions, they'll be asking you core value things. It used to be that the kids did a core value activity, but then with COVID, that went away. I don't know if that will ever come back, but that used to be where they did an activity and then answered questions about that activity. But the last few years, that hasn't happened. But so that's how that works. So they're gonna go from project to robot, and it's, you know, so they're gonna have to be able to fill some time talking about their robot, but it can just be a conversation. It doesn't have to be prepared. The skit pretty much does have to be prepared. 5 minutes.
What's gonna happen on the, you know, if you look at those rubrics are really the judge's score sheets.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna check off and give you essentially a grade, a 1, 2, 3, or 4 for all those subjects. And that ranks up the score. And,
Yeah.
you know.
So that can help you.
The teams get ranked by that. So at the end of the competition, understand that.
How often do you meet?
Well, we're crazy, so you gotta take that into account. In the beginning, we've always met twice a week. We've been really lucky because we're at a school, and so we would meet from like 3 until 5, 5:30, 6, kind of depending. When we get closer to a competition, we might meet like 3, 4, 5 times a week, and we have been known to, I mean, we'll work all day on a Saturday. I mean, this little angel and this one, they've been at our grade school until like 2 in the morning. So, you know, it just depends on,
Don't be intimidated by that.
yeah.
I took several teams to state. We only met once a week.
Yeah, so it just depends on how, I told you we're crazy. It just depends on how crazy you are.
So 2 things, if you Google it, there's a timeline for the judging. It gives you the breakdown
Yeah.
of like 5 minutes for this, 10 minutes for this, 5 minutes for this. And you can just Google, what I mean, called, I have several copies of it.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called,
But
but it's,
there's a timeline for the judging. They release-
it's on the first website.
Yes, and also, we generally recommend for my teams, I'm with Girl Scouts, 1 hour a week. Like these cuckoo people over
Yeah,
there.
we're cuckoo. We're totally cuckoo.
Yeah.
But we have crazy kids, you know, so that's the thing. We have totally crazy kids.
So, sometimes the meeting times are efficient and sometimes you're less efficient.
Yeah.
So do you have is to do and then bring back, and then how well does that work out?
We have done homework. It doesn't usually work out great. Typically, if there is homework, we always have a group meet for the parents. And so we communicate through the group meet and we'll say, hey, we told the kids that everyone needs to, you know, research, you know, solar power, you know, and, you know, so if they could spend 15 minutes, you know, before the next meeting, you know, on the internet, that'd be great. So we'll typically let the parents know if there's homework, even though, you know, but I mean, it's hard because if you have 4th graders, they can't go and search for solar power on the internet very well. I mean, that doesn't work. So it kind of depends on what your age group is. And we do meet so much that we have been able to try and get it focused. It's very difficult to do the homework.
Now, I know that you guys usually have large numbers, like 8 or 10 people on the team. How do you divide your meeting time? Because in my experience, I've had 1 robot. We try to do even like 2 robots
Yeah.
or even 3,
Yes,
but they don't perform the same way, even if you build them the same way.
yes.
And so that's not really useful. So how do you have the robot programming stuff when, I mean, how do you divide that out?
So we have half the kids working on project and half the kids working on robot. And we pair people up to code. So we have 1 person coding and 1 person, so they're coding and, you know, like 1 person will be working on the robot while the other person's at the computer making the changes, sending it over. So we always have 2 people and we do have multiple robots that the kids build to be exactly the same. They do not perform the same. So when you get to competition, then they pick which robot they want to use. But it's close enough for the concept and the learning and just bringing that we'll have the multiple, we've always had 2 for sure, sometimes 3, but as close to the same as possible. And we pair them up. So we never really want someone working alone on the robot. You know, teamwork we have found is much more efficient than someone sitting at the computer programming, getting up, you know,
Yeah.
doing the thing. So we pair them up. So half the kids, you know, are on the robot, half are on project, and then we'll like halfway through switch. And we've always required all of our members to work on the project. We require all of our members to try the robot, but the robot doesn't stick for everyone. And then we're, you know, okay with that. They still have to be able to talk about it and know about it, but that's how we've done it.
So we have to move your conversation out
Yeah.
and let the other people come in?
Yeah,
To be fair to them, it was Laura's fault. She came in here and talked for a while.